Cisco Macyx gameplay here. Just got done watching, listening to Boogie and the panel about ending cyberbullying. You guys brought up a lot of good points, very inspirational. Great job, Boogie. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and I highly support this topic.
I've always been able to handle that kind of thing. But when it comes to threats to my family or threats to my dog, they're going to poison my dog, they took a hit out for my life on the Tor network, or sending a box of feces to my house, that to me is what I consider to be cyberbullying. I don't know if we can ever end it, but boy, I really wish you guys would end it. Please, thank you.
I think the whole argument of saying, oh, just close your laptop, just walk away, go outside, that doesn't work, because we live in a world and a society where the internet is so connected to our actual real lives, and you can't separate them anymore. It's not like you have your real life and then you have an internet life. It's like your work is connected that way, your social life is connected that way, and we need to start thinking of it as one thing rather than these separate things. And so then when you just say just walk away from it, that doesn't work, because it's just such a part of your life. So that response just never makes any sense to me.
I mean, I think when it comes to the idea of bullying, I think we have a very specific idea in our heads when we hear the word bully at all, and we forget that bullying is really targeted harassment. So for me, there's nothing wrong with you having an opinion or a critique of what I'm doing, right? Because if I'm putting it out there, I am inviting a conversation if the comments are open, right? But there's a difference to me in taking it the extra step of, here's my opinion, here's how much I hate you on every single platform you're on daily. Bullying is kind of a way of trying to quiet a voice or trying to make someone fear speaking up about something that they feel is important. And I think when we think bully, we think of this very childish kind of just get over it, just get tough skin, just, your feelings. And so much I think of what we've all experienced is not so much about saying words that hurt. I'm not sitting here with my feelings hurt. I've been on the internet long enough to take whatever it is you want to say. It's really when it comes to my safety. My empathy is open to the point that my safety is in jeopardy, my family's safety is in jeopardy. Having an opinion about an experience that I have directly means that someone could show up to my house. That you have to start making decisions about, is the thing that I think I need to say worth saying, or does it affect my life? And it's just it's a new world that we're in right now. It's not the bullying of being in middle school and kids that make fun of me every day. It's it's that times a million.
And it's in your pocket as well, that's the thing. It's with you all the time.
Yeah. It's hard. Yeah, you can't just turn it off. It's our jobs, our lives are so interconnected with technology. It's moving so fast. And I think a lot of things I'm sure we'll get into, but I think the desire to just say, just get over it, just close your laptop is a little lacking in how layered technology is with our lives right now.
I want to echo what you're talking about in terms of language. I don't even like the word cyberbullying. I think that it's not the point. I think it's too easy to think of bullying as a thing that kids do on the schoolyard and sticks and stones, blah, blah, blah. Trolling is a specific thing that is used incorrectly all the time. What we are talking about is targeted harassment. And I think we need to use the language of the things that we're talking about, and that's one of the first steps in actually working to end harassment and to end the targeted harassment of women, people of color, queer folks, anyone who is of any intersection of oppression has experienced some level of harassment online because of who they are, not because of what they're saying or what they're doing necessarily. And I think, going back to the original question, you gotta be super privileged to ever be well, there's no harassment online, either because you've never experienced it or you're choosing to ignore it and you're in spaces where you're not seeing that happen. Because it is a sad reality of digital space and online space that we are targets of harassment constantly, whether it's just one hateful message every now and again or a mob that's been going after you for years and years and years. So it's, it's just dumb. It's just outrightly incorrect to say harassment isn't happening, especially given that I have sat on a panel, called this, and panels about this so many fucking times, and we're still here, right? We're still trying to justify that we're being abused and harassed online, and this is real.
Yeah, I would actually love to dive into that a little bit more about the idea of critiquing versus bullying. Like how can someone critique somebody else in a way that isn't bullying?
Don't harass them.
Yeah. Yeah, what does that mean? So like how do you offer like a positive critique?
It's not hard to be respectful and say, I disagree with you for these reasons, right? And come at it with the benefit of the doubt that you're coming where you're truly trying to intellectually have a conversation with somebody else, right? I feel like I get a lot of folks who say, well, what's the difference? Like, how do you draw the line? Where is it? And I'm like, I think it should be pretty clear what's harassment. Like, if you're like, hey, what you said was dumb, you stupid bitch, like, that's harassment. If you said, I disagree with your points because there's this example in X, Y, and Z or what have you, that could be better. I will just add, not to take up too much space, but I will just add that I think a lot of times, you know, like I think that harassment is much broader than you defined it. Because harassment isn't only just threats. A lot of the stuff that's the most exhausting is the daily grind that is being thrown at you of either comments about your appearance, comments about, you know, things that are not related to your work, conspiracy theories that are made up about you, just the day-to-day stuff that isn't necessarily actionable, but it's just exhausting because it's people who are coming at you with bad faith. So there are folks who come to me and say, you're wrong for these reasons, but it's like 500 people that looked at one video that one person made online that is not coming at me with good faith, trying to attack what I'm doing, but it's not because they actually watched my video, it's because they watched somebody else's video about my video.
I want to make sure that when I talk about cyberbullying, I mostly focus on the worst of it for me personally, but I think it's so important that we remember that pain is a relative thing. My worst day may have very different details than somebody else's worst day, but that doesn't make it any less that person's worst day, right? And I think it's also important to remember that perception is 9/10 of reality. And so whatever I personally perceive as being real can be very real to me. And so I think it really does come down to a personal level of tolerance and a personal level of ability to handle abuse. And unfortunately, I am very versed at handling abuse, having the first 20 years of my life been nothing but that. So I think often my view can be skewed because I have such an incredibly high tolerance level. Not everyone's going to feel that way, and I think when you are critiquing somebody, when you're commenting on their work, I would try to keep that in mind. And I think if someone does, hey Boogie, I really like this story arc you're telling with Francis, but I didn't feel this video was one of your best ones. Good luck with the next one. Like, that means the world to me. That's not harassment to me. That's friendly critique. It's constructive criticism. But hey, you fat fuck, kill yourself. Excuse my language. That does nothing for me. That just makes that 12-year-old feel very good. I can still endure it. Not everybody can.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. Like, if someone comments on a video saying, like, oh, this would have been so much funnier if you did so-and-so, like, oh yeah, I should have thought of that. But if they're just like, wow, your voice is so annoying, you should kill yourself, it doesn't really help me out at all. It doesn't make my video any better. So, yeah, there's definitely a difference between, like, critiquing someone's content and just, like, insulting and bullying them.
I think like the space that we work in is important to have critique and to go back and forth with ideas and things that we're doing. But I think that it's so interesting because I feel like we're part of a culture and a generation that, like, I feel like I'm part of the last generation that remembers what life was before we all had personal computers and iPads. And so it's like, I feel like I'm constantly relearning how to communicate with other people and to adapt to that. And how do you have these conversations over these platforms that make you feel very connected to everyone all of the time, but connected to no one at the same time? I think that there's a lot of fracturing that happens because we're learning how to use this technology and how to interact with each other. We're still trying to figure out how to take care of each other and how to, like, what's the best way that we move forward. to make life better. Like a lot of us want the same things, you know. We want to be safe. We want to have jobs we love. We want our families to be happy. We want all these things. And in our generation, we always want to be better than our parents. And so I think we get these conversations that are important but get veered off track. Like we're living in this technological like supernova right now where everything is speeding up so quickly, and we have to figure out how we interact with each other and what is productive, because it's going to set the precedent for how we move forward and the laws that come into place, because the internet is no longer just a place where we have fun, it's a place where we get to know each other and communicate, which is a very human thing that we need. It's interesting because we get in these this infighting, or we get in these back and forth conversations, and I just think that there is a lack of empathy for people's actual real experiences. It's not that all of a sudden there are all of these genders and all of these opinions that were never here before. And I think the pushback is we're afraid of change. We don't want things to change. We're moving too quickly anyways. We don't have the luxury of our parents' generation and before, where it was information stayed somewhere for a while and we knew what it was. It's constantly going. And you can get exhausted thinking, oh my God, there's a new thing that I have to know. There's a new pronoun that I have to be aware of. It's not that there's new things. Those things have always been around. It's just that we are more connected than we've ever been. And groups of people are able to reach out and empower each other to speak up finally. And so I think that this is just a very interesting time where we're trying to figure out how to have conversations, be true to our own experiences and have empathy for each other, but also get the world to move in the direction it needs to go. Because at the end of the day, I would assume most of us want freedom and equality and fairness and justice. It's just a matter of figuring out how we were raised, the things that we already know, and deconstructing those to create the world that we want to live in. And to have the conversations that we want to have and that we want to be a part of. I blacked out and said a lot of things. So
What did I say?
Okay, I think that made sense.
I really like you were saying about how just how much technology's changed. Because I didn't have a smartphone until I was 20, and there's so many people at this event who probably had a smartphone since they were 5. And so it is such a different world to navigate. And I remember in school, the advice we would be given about cyberbullying would be don't meet up with strange men that you met in chat rooms. And we're at a convention now where we're all strangers and we all met on the internet. And 15 years ago, it was just don't do that. And now there's 20,000 people in one place. So yeah, it's scary, and I think technology is moving a lot faster than how we're figuring out how to cope with that and navigating that world. So it feels hard because we're constantly playing catch up.
Yeah, I would love to dive more into that, the idea of empathy, and when it comes to ending cyberbullying on a social level, what are some ways that y'all as creators try and do that? If you do that, how do you try and build that empathy within your communities?
I personally, I try to focus on the positive and not the negative. I've made a couple of reading mean tweets or reading mean messages, but I think when you give those people attention, you give those people power. So I very much try to take the high road and try to take the moral road. I think it's very important to remember that even though I might be the target of harassment, I have to not put more harassment into the world. I think it's all right to defend yourself, certainly, but you have to do it in a very high road, in a very moralistic way. And I think it's also important to foster positivity in your community. If I do respond to actually me and Megan were talking about this recently, if I respond to a negative tweet on Twitter, I will always respond to a few positive tweets as well to try to foster that in my community. And I think when it comes to the internet, as creators and as pundits here and personalities on the internet, people want our attention. And I think we get to pick the type of attention we give them. And if we give them positive attention and show them that that's what will be rewarded, then you will get so much more of it. And I think when we show ourselves as bothered by it, or just show them the truth that nobody can truly handle that stuff, it can often result in an amplification. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes we can make. 2 wrongs never make a right. And I really think it eventually digs you into a hole that you may never be able to get out of if you respond negatively too often.
I I mean, for me, the way that I deal with a lot of, like, there's just certain videos I'll make that I'm like, oh, the comments are about to be shit. I'm ready for it, I'm waiting. And my experience on YouTube has always been people doubting if I could be good at something or funny, or whatever it is. So people would stop my video and leave a comment before they watched it, and then 30 seconds into me singing, they'd be like, oh, I actually kind of really like this. Like, so I'm used to that kind of dichotomy of like someone that automatically hates me and then starts to kind of see where I'm coming from or like what I'm making. So a lot of times if I get like really, awful comments, like love call me Snorlax, Hambies, whatever, love it. All day, every day, I'll wear t-shirts and say it's fine. And so I see these comments like I want to die because of this video, because whatever, white whale bitch. And for me, I'll respond with like a joke or just kind of point out like, LOL, that's so dramatic. Like just to kind of take the power out of it a little bit, because I think a lot of it is frustration and it is, sometimes you don't always get a response to the positives to something. So if you give a negative comment, you know that a creator is looking at it more intensely and like more affected by it. There's something about affecting someone like that that I think on a human level, like we're interested in. Like I can't say that if I were 14 and had Twitter, that Joss Whedon wouldn't have gotten some tweets that would have got me blocked. Like season 4 of Buffy, I have some issues that I need to talk about in depth. And so, I don't know how that would have gone if I had been younger, if I had maybe had less experience on this side of things. I think empathy comes into play too when we realize that a lot of times I'll see these fights going back and forth, and I've been in these fights where you make something and you put it out there, and then someone wants like you to hold their hand and walk them through the argument. And as much as I can appreciate that coming and wanting to have a conversation, I think there's a lack of understanding that there are thousands of people coming and wanting that exact same amount of energy and dedication to the conversation. And so I see the fighting happening when someone's like, well, I'm not Google, like figure it out. And it's like, oh, well, I came to you and like, I need you to explain it to me. And there's this back and forth. What really comes down to is everyone is doing the best that they can with what they have. Everyone is trying to share their experience and represent it in a way that they feel comfortable and connect with other people. And not everyone that does that necessarily has a background in that or has a team of people and PR people or has a degree in it. Like we're all trying to share our experiences. And so I'll stamp on shit real quick and I'll say things that probably get me in trouble with people. But there are moments that you have to kind of step back and think, okay, what is going on that I don't know about, that I'm not aware of, that I imagine is affecting this person and how they're interacting with others online? How can I do a little bit of the work too, so that the onus isn't on one person to teach me everything, and then because they won't teach me everything, I'm angry and now we hate each other. I don't think that dynamic is healthy or helpful to anyone. So yeah. Also, don't say things to people that you wouldn't say to like your grandma. You know what I'm saying? Say hi to your grandma.
Like Megan said, I usually respond with like a smart-ass comment, like trying to be funny if someone's hating on me, or I just try to ignore it completely. One time I made a like reading mean comments video while drunk, and I actually was like crying laughing because it was so funny. So I do try to kind of like make a joke out of a lot of the hate that I get, and like use the hate to hopefully entertain other people. And I don't know, cyberbullying sucks overall, but I don't know, I think I've just kind of learned to try to ignore it for the most part and just try to like explain to my viewers that it just doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, unless it's like your mom or something. Like no one else's opinion really matters, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, I'd love to dive into that too a little deeper, with the idea being when we're talking about ending cyberbullying on a social level, what can we each, like as community members, do to try and fight back against that? Like, is there something you wish that your fan communities would do when they see that kind of behavior, or some kinds of questions that they can ask themselves before posting a comment?
I think that we are in a time right now where, again, I mentioned, I think technology is moving faster than laws and than police officers know what to do with, and then all these people that previously have been these authority figures that can help you in a situation. It's changed so much, and I do think that I love when I see a community kind of come together and say, this is what we find unacceptable. Like at the end of the day, maybe we don't agree, and we don't all have like in the fan community, we all have like a different version of like what we should look like, who should represent us, what should happen, and I think that a lot of times that gets distracting. I lost my train of thought, but it was so genius what I was going to say.
I'm sure it was.
Oh God, I just looked into a light or something and I lost everything.
Because it's so loud. I'm like very distracted by everything else.
I can only imagine. But yeah, I don't remember what I was going to say. Something about something great. Just imagine something great and quote me.
For me, I feel like in terms of fostering like a really positive community to kind of counter a lot of the harassment that you get online, for me it's all about leading by example, because I feel like the way that you behave on a social platform, it will make your subscribers, followers or whatever feel like they've been given permission to do the same, and so I just try and basically I will like reward like positive comments and stuff by engaging with them, and then like on Twitter and things, I like, unless it's about like the UK general election and all of that stuff, I'm genuinely really positive about things, and I've seen it before where like followers of mine have like tried to come to my defense in certain things, and then they've ended up getting harassed, and I'm like, no, this is where I draw the line, and it's really hard to see that, because I'm like trying to, you know, create this positive community, and then they're getting harassed like whilst they're trying to protect me, and that just feels horrible to me, and I'll just say to them like you don't have to like engage with that on my behalf, because I'm not bothering. So yeah, I also lost where I was going, but that's my point.
I just think, yeah, we have to create these communities that are really involved in the progress of the community. It's not enough to say, well, we're all on the internet, so whatever goes, goes. It's like there are things that are just unacceptable when it puts people's safety at risk. Like it's not worth it when we're all sitting here trying to figure out how to use this technology to share our stories. I think so much of like what pushes me forward is that I have a good group of friends, good family, and there are a lot of things that I feel empowered to do that I know not everyone that looks like me feels empowered to do. However you feel about obesity or fat people or why we are the way we are and who, whatever, blah, 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 there are a lot of layers to that I'm willing to dive into, but at the end of the day, my experience gives me a little insight into what that might be, and so I want to share that, and I want to be empowered to talk about those things. And I know a lot of my audience are like these younger girls that are dealing with body image issues and want to be confident and want to speak up and want, you know, I would get messages saying, I want to do music, but I see the comments you get and I don't want to do it. That is so sad to me, not doing something because of what people might say. And so I just think, for me, the drive is to react to things and to engage with people in a way that shows my audience you don't have to sit there and just hate yourself because everyone's so used to hating themselves, and when you don't hate yourself, you're an enigma. So being able to stand up, or at least say things maybe in a little snarky way back and kind of push back and take some of the power out of it, or creating something where it's like, this is the way I feel about myself or my life and I want to share this, but I'm not strong enough to do it. Well, here's a video that you can show your mom, that you can show your friends, that you can send out the message without having to like, you know, have the backbone for it yet. You can kind of open the door. And it's unfortunate that you create content like that and then people want to jump on it as, well, you being alive is you promoting this really unhealthy lifestyle. It's like, I'm trying to figure it out like you all are, and I'm trying to be honest about my journey, and I just happen to be fat, and that's part of it. But I want to be able to talk about it and not immediately feel like, oh, you're promoting obesity just by living. I'm just living, I'm a person. I think that's what it comes down to, is like you have to see people as people, and hopefully that opens the conversations up a little bit more so we're not fighting all the time.
I think the question of what audiences can do to support people who are being harassed or to end online harassment is really complicated. There's so many different directions I can go right now. I think one of the reasons that I struggle with it is because it's really hard to be a bystander. It's really hard to watch people being harassed, right? Both in terms of whether you know them or not. And as someone who has been on both sides of that, it's been a really emotional experience in terms of being like, oh my God, all of my friends are being attacked right now. How do you deal with that? And there is secondary trauma that comes with watching people be harassed, whether it's happening to you or not, or because you're watching it happen. I think that a lot of people want to support folks who are being harassed and don't really know how. And that's a really legitimate feeling and a legitimate issue, because sometimes you might make it worse by saying something legitimately, and sometimes you might make it better by saying something, and it's sometimes hard to know. And so the advice that I often give is go follow what the person targeted is doing. If they're speaking up about it and they're being public about it, then you can amplify their voices and amplify their story, because it's clear that they want to be. They want to speak about this issue. But sometimes folks don't want their voices amplified. So being like, oh, hey, did you see this person over here is being targeted is not necessarily helpful, and can actually be really dangerous, because you don't know what situation that person is in or why they're choosing to remain quiet about an issue. The other thing is, I feel like too often folks come to these panels or see this stuff happening and then you walk away and that's it. Like, cool, this is an issue, we may have heard some smart things being said, and then you don't know what to do after this. And I think it's really important that you leave feeling empowered and you leave riled up and angry and pissed. Like, what are we going to do about this together? Why is this still a thing that's happening? And why is it our job to solve this problem, right? So what do you do in your communities? How do you have these conversations in your communities? How do you monitor? How do you moderate your communities? And also how, like, being an ally of whatever like, if you are a white person, you should be talking to other white people about white supremacy and your privilege. If you are a man, you should be talking to other men about it. If you are cis, you should be talking about trans issues. You should be educating the folks in your privilege category so that we don't have to do that work, or whatever intersections, right? And I think that that's a really important piece of this, about how to be a good ally. What does that mean? How do you support this community? And how do we start building a space online where we just get to do the cool shit that we want to do, because not be attacked because of the way we look or because of who we are, as opposed to just like, we're all making cool stuff and we can have interesting conversations around that. That isn't to say we can't disagree and we can't critique each other, but like, harassment needs to end, and we need to allow space for more voices to come in that are being silenced and shut down. And you know, like, I work a lot adjacent to games, and like, listening to young women who wanted to work in games but then see what happens to us in this space and not want to pursue that career is absolutely devastating. So how do we end that now so that we get more people, more women in tech, more marginalized voices in these spaces making videos about whatever it is that they're interested in?
Well, my answer is probably going to be way less impactful than that. Because,
I've been doing this for a while.
Right. But I think if you individually want to make your community better, I think as a creator, and I'm in charge of a community, for my Twitch stream, for example, I hire very good moderators who take very good care of my chat to make sure that positivity is pushed to the front and negativity is removed. I use filters on my YouTube channel in my comments section to make sure that the frequent harassment words that are used against me are filtered out, and that positive comments are often upvoted. I will go through and block out an hour every day to interact personally with people who put positivity on the internet to foster that. And I think if you want to make your community better, I think the best thing you can do is fill that community with positivity. I don't necessarily agree that anger and frustration is the right way to do that. I think when we find something beautiful in our community, I think we should celebrate that, right? And that's just a different methodology, the way that I would choose to do it. But I personally have had enough anger and enough pain and enough frustration to where I personally can't fight that fight. So what I choose to do is I celebrate positivity and beautiful stuff instead. And it's so important as a creator to use those tools. On Twitter, there's tools, I think even you were on the advisory board that created some of these incredible tools on Twitter that made my Twitter feed so much more bearable. Use those tools. They are available to you. Get to know them and use them to foster a beautiful community that celebrates our uniqueness and our happiness and our joy in this world.
actually, I think we're about halfway through the panel, so I want to make sure that like folks have some tools that they can use when they step away. Actually, so I think that's a great segue into that. Something so like as creators, when you're on those spaces, I know you were talking about tools like on Twitter. Are there any like Chrome extensions that y'all use, or any other like actual tools that people can implement to make that social online space better?
Well, I personally don't use any individual tools like that because I want to make sure that whatever my community is seeing, that I'm seeing as well, so that I can handle it, moderate it, and take care of it. In fact, using the YouTube tools, I will see any terrible comments that many people never will, and I do that personally because my community, I appeal to a lot of people who have weight issues or anxiety issues or depression issues, or because I talk about suicidal tendencies. I don't want those people seeing that. I don't want that adding to their stress, to their anxiety, and especially when somebody's in a time of crisis. So I don't use personal tools like that. I just use the basic tools that are there.
Yeah, I guess if anyone doesn't know what they are, there's the feature on YouTube where you can blacklist certain words. But I've heard from lots of people saying that people like find their way around it by misspelling things. So then it just becomes like this exhausting thing where you're like, okay, how many ways can you misspell this horrible slur? And then you're trying to put them all in there, and and then like if you go into that held to review section, it's like, oh, there it all is. But yeah, it's nice that like your audience don't have to see that, because then like when you look into a comment section, you want examples of good comments that are like respectful, whether they agree with you or not, but if they're respectful, and so then that will hopefully encourage people to like follow the lead in that sense of like those are the kinds of comments that are welcome here. What other tools? I'm trying to think now. What other tools there are? Yes, words. I'm not necessarily going to recommend a bunch of tools, but I will say that your internet space is not a public square. It is your space, and I would like to treat my space like a living room, right? We can have friendly conversations, we can have friendly disagreements, we can talk about whatever, but you can't come in here calling me a dumb cunt, right? Like, I would kick someone out of my house for doing that. So, like, thank you. I think that it's too often we get these bullshit comments about, you're censoring me and freedom of speech, and I'm like, yo, I'm not the government. Cool. Don't capitulate to that. If you want to moderate your space, create the community that you want to create. For us, unfortunately, we have to keep our comments closed. If we open our YouTube comments, it is so instantaneously vile that we don't have the internal capacity to moderate that. And so that's an unfortunate thing, that we don't get to engage with our viewers and our fans in that way, which actually really sucks a lot. But it's a choice that we made in order to not subject our fans and our viewers to that kind of thing. So, there are lots of great tools, and if you have the capacity to moderate, if you have the ability to put in, like, we use blockers on our Twitch streams and that sort of thing. Not blockers, we use different moderating tools on it. Use those at your disposal, and don't feel bad about it, right? Don't feel bad that you're not allowing comments through, or that you're blocking people who are being disruptive in any way. You get to determine the bar of what you want your community to be like. It took me so long to come to that conclusion, because I would just see so much shit in my feeds, and I would just create new accounts, and I'll just make them angry, and and then I remember one day I was just like, no, this is enough, and I just blocked someone on Twitter. I was like, oh my god, that feels so good. I know, it's like, this feels amazing.
There are other tools, like on Facebook, you can hide messages, and then the person who wrote them, not messages, comments, and the person who wrote the message doesn't know it was hidden.
Yeah.
If you really care about that stuff, there are occasionally tools for that, but, again, I'm so glad you came to that.
Yeah, no, it was great.
The mute button is incredible, and I wish it existed on everything. I used to have to unfollow people and actually deal with the backlash of unfollowing a person back in the day, and now I can just mute them and let them yell into the void.
I don't feel bad about unfollowing though either. I swear every 6 months I'm like, okay, it's time for a call.
If I can add one thing, I think if I can leave you with any one idea or concept that made my life infinitely better, it's the concept of mute, don't block. Muting on Twitter or even YouTube will not inform the person that they have been removed from the community. But if you block them, then they know. And so that gives them an opportunity to create a new account or to find a new way to get back into the community. But if you mute them, then they will scream into the void and no one ever sees it. And many people will take a block as a badge of honor. You know, so-and-so blocked me, so-and-so blocked me. I think I've only blocked like 2 people in the world, actually, but I don't take it as a badge of honor. It's actually really hurt me. Amy Schumer, what did I say? I'm so sorry. But I really don't know. I've never, I scoured my Twitter feed and I'm like, I never mentioned her. It's so weird. But anyway.
I don't think you're missing anything on Amy Schumer's time. So I think that.
But I mean, Amy Schumer, had she muted me, I would never know, and I would never experience it, and I certainly wouldn't be concerned about it. And I think if you mute and don't block, they never get the satisfaction that they're looking for.
They have different consequences, though. So, I think that using the tools for what they're designed, using the tools for what works for you, it works, right? So if you block someone, then technically, if they're signed in, they can't see your feed anymore, and that's might be a really important thing for some folks. So they do different things, and I think that use the tools that work for you, right? If you don't want to deal with the why did you block me, then yeah, mute people. But sometimes I think it's valuable to be it's almost a symbolic act to say you are disruptive to my space and you're not allowed in here, and to send that kind of a message.
And also even if you mute someone and you can't see what they're saying, if somebody else in your community looks at the replies to one of your tweets, then they would be able to see it, I assume. But yeah, if you have someone muted and they're screaming into the void, you can't see it, but other members of the community could.
Yeah, well, Uplift is actually developing a Chrome extension that blocks comments based off of certain words that you input, but also keeps in mind the surrounding context, which is something we're excited about. That's just a quick plug. I would also love to hear any offline tools that y'all have. If y'all go to friends or family or
Yeah, I was about to say friends. They're a great tool.
Yeah.
I would absolutely say that without my wife, I would have certainly not been able to do this job over the last 7 years. The last 3 years specifically, as I catch all kinds of heck from both the left and the right. Most recently the right, and it's an interesting thing. But I do make sure that I take at least one night a week to eject from the internet in its entirety and spend some time with my friends and play with my dog and take my wife out for a nice meal. And during every nervous breakdown, I reach out to other creators, some who are mentors and some who I help, and we commiserate and I think it's so important to build that secret community, because there's some things I feel like I'm not comfortable sharing with my community when it comes to my anxiety disorders and stuff like that. But not for my wife, my dog, and my friends, and a couple of therapists over the years. I don't know that I could be here today, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting a journal is super important. I feel like I promote journals in every panel that I'm on. I'm like, just get a journal and write your feelings. But yeah, I think taking time away from the space. I also think events that are kind of fostering these conversations are important, because there's so often that I don't think anyone else is going through something, and then I meet other creators that are going through the exact same thing. And there is power in numbers. There is power in that conversation. It can be such an isolating job. And anytime that I'm around other creators that we can kind of go over what's happening, that helps me, or at least makes me feel less alone in it. But yeah, and I think just if you can have a strong group of friends or family or some kind of home base, it definitely helps. 3 years ago I had a butt photo taken down off Instagram. I was on a t-shirt and underwear, and it got flagged as pornography. And so the first thing I thought was, well, this is bullshit, because why would my body be seen as pornography when I see girls completely naked on this site? So how am I breaking the code of conduct, right? And I made a YouTube video about it, and I called it out, and I just asked the question, why is my body type specifically seen as pornographic? Why is it, unsatisfactory? Or why do people flag things because they don't want to see it, so no one should see it, as opposed to it actually violates something? And that got big enough that Instagram apologized. And they were like, we don't always get it right, and they put the photo back up. And so it's like, sometimes, like my mom always raised me, like the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And it is very much about like speaking up. And if you have the opportunity to speak up and be surrounded by supportive people, really good things can happen. But after that, when all of a sudden my butt was on the news and my parents are living in the Midwest, and I'm like, okay, well, this is not gonna go well because I didn't tell them about this. I remember going to visit my mom, and I was just really upset. I was just really down, and she could tell my energy was off. And you know, I was like, there are thousands of people that I don't know that are looking at a photo of me and then judging me based on that, and they're deciding how worthy I am, if my butt even looks good enough to show, what kind of sex I have, how often I'm having sex because of that, what my parents must think about it, how loved I am. And I was really down, and my mom, God bless her, was like, fuck those people, Megan. They don't know who you are. And that was like so important to have someone that wasn't involved at all in this community to kind of bring me back down to like, okay, they really don't. And so it's up to me to represent myself and actually share who I am the way that I want to be shown. It takes some of that power back. So I think if you have good people around you that can pull you out of some of this shit that we're in, and remind you that it is a very short life, is a very big world, and like we gotta look out for each other. We just do.
Yeah, for me, so I started on Vine, and I never expected to have like any followers or anything at all. Like I was just making Vines for fun, and then like one day I checked it and I had 1,000 followers, and I thought that was like the craziest thing ever. And then soon after that, I started getting like a lot of mean comments, and I just was like not expecting it or like prepared for it at all, because I didn't think anyone was gonna watch my videos in the first place. So I remember I like called my brother crying, and my brother's like my best friend, and I called him crying like so upset. I was like, why do these like complete strangers like hate me? Like I don't understand. And he was like, you should make a mean comments video. And like I wasn't doing YouTube at that point, and so like that was his idea. And then I made that video and like turned it around, and that ended up being like my first YouTube video that like passed 1 million views. And so I don't know. Point is that it does help to talk to people around you that you're close to, and my brother just really helped me out with that. And again, it was just like turning the hate into something positive, and it's like, screw you guys, now I get paid to talk, so suck it.
No, just like reiterate the friends and family thing. Like it is really good. I think to have like the two different kinds of support, like the support from other creators who like understand it and get it, and can maybe sympathize and empathize with what you're going through. But then on the flip side, having friends and family who kind of like what's vlogging, and having them, like you said, kind of pull you out of it. And it's really great to have that foundation. It re-roots you. You're kind of like, okay, what actually matters? So it's good to have both of those kinds of support.
Can I also say that like if you guys are creators and just like in general, I think having empathy for other creators and like DMing them support is really nice, but it's not enough. Like you can't just behind the scenes say, oh man, I see what you're going through and that really sucks, and I'm here for you and I agree with you, but then you have a platform and you're not saying that. You're letting someone just like be taken over by the wolves, essentially, even though you agree with them. And I think a lot of times in this industry, it's like, I understand, everyone wants to be brand friendly and wants to be very cookie cutter and blah, 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 and like there's this desire to appease the most amount of people, but I think that there's still a space to have an opinion and to share that and to support other creators that don't have that platform and need that help. So I see, you know, for me it's like if a big YouTuber comes to me and is like, oh, I saw what happened, and like I see you're saying things, I really agree with it, but they don't say shit except to promote their own videos, that really doesn't mean very much to me. I think you have to put a little skin in the game, and you have to put your name behind something, and if you really believe it, then I think you should show it.
Yes. 100% yes. Self-care is so important. It took me many years to realize that. There gets to be a point where you're like, oh, I've literally read every horrible thing that's ever been written about me, or like seen every video, and I'm like, why am I watching this shit? Like, why am I going through this? And you start to build a new level of normal, which is not okay. The level of normal is just like abject abuse and hatred, and that's like, cool, waking up this morning, gonna look at all the horrible things. And once I stopped doing that, once I gave myself more space to not engage with it as much as I used to, I realized a levity coming up into my life a little bit, where I could function a little bit better. I could pull myself away from the train wreck, because it can be really hard not to just keep scrolling through it. I co-wrote a safety guide with some other women who were harassed. It's at onlinesafety.feministfrequency.com. It gives you tips for things around how to protect your online safety in general if you're worried about that, as I think we all should be, whether you're a target or not. But there's a huge piece of it that's about self-care, because we really want to encourage folks to take care of themselves through this process and be gentle with yourself through this process, because being harassed, like, it's not a competition. So no matter what level of harassment you're receiving, whether it's one comment or 100 or 5 years worth, it's still awful and it still has consequences on you. So echoing what everyone said in terms of support with friends and community and family or whoever that is makes a world of difference. But there's also a bunch of other things in terms of, like, what's the stuff that you love to do? Do you like to go outside school? You know, like, do you love to eat chocolate? Maybe eat a bunch of chocolate. Like, whatever it is, like, find those things that give you solace and give you space away from the harassment. And find the people who will be there for you without judging you, without trying to solve your problems, because we already know what the problems are and we probably know how to solve them. You just kind of want folks to validate your experiences and your existence and just be there with you.
If I could follow up on that, do not eat all the chocolate you want. I speak from experience. So, okay, just a little chocolate, okay?
Maybe you love broccoli. Maybe that's like your real comfort food is broccoli.
Yeah, well, actually, along with that, HeartMob is a really cool site that you can go to, and if you're experiencing harassment, you can post something asking for support. So asking for, like, legal support, or asking just for emotional support, or for additional folks to report something that's harassing, like a harassing message. So HeartMob, definitely a place to go. And you can also go there if you're not being harassed, and you can help to provide that support, that emotional support, whatever that person's asking for.
Let's also plug Crash Override, who's also doing really, really great work around online harassment and everything we're talking about here.
Yeah, I just think that there's this belief, and I try to understand it, but I think as I've gotten older and I've realized that words do mean things. They do. We communicate as a species with a lot of things. That includes words. Language is important. It determines how people interact with us. It determines how we understand things. So I think that depending on what side you're on, or the day, the time of day really, you might be in a mode where you're like, this means something and I'm angry about it and I should blah, blah, blah. Or you might feel like, oh, words mean nothing, just get over it, like, grow up, blah, blah. But I think it's important to understand that when you look at the good things that words do, right? So words inspire people. We have songs that change your entire life. It'll change your whole experience. It'll give you those aha moments. We also have to take responsibility for the bad things that words can do. And I think that we're scared of interacting or engaging with our presence in how we are affecting culture and we are affecting things around us with the language that we use. So it's not about censoring words, you can't say this or blah, blah. It's really about when you grow up a certain way and you're saying certain things, just like when you get older and you figure out, like, oh, there's foods that I was fed when I was a kid that I really don't like, and I'm an adult now, and I can eat sandwiches for breakfast. I don't have to do what people told me to do. I think it's a conscious unveiling of what you've been taught, what you've been giving, and figuring out what actually makes sense to you and what you believe. And figuring out if a certain word that I've wrote up here in my entire life is more important than people that I genuinely care about that are hurt by it, and how can I adapt or adjust or at least understand and empathize with that, so that I can move forward and not be stuck as, like, 12-year-old me that used to say this just because that's just how it is. It's not how it is. Like, you are an active participant in a lot of things, including your life and the lives of others. I think we need to take a little bit more responsibility and take a little bit more time to be understanding of that.
I think if we have any potential trolls or combatants on the internet right now watching, and I know that we do, hi guys, you know about that. I think one of the things to really keep in mind is that, you know, the world is relative to the individual experience, and what's right for me may not be right for her or you. And so what we have to try to keep in mind is that for you, maybe words don't mean a lot, right? Maybe someone could call you every name in the book, and that doesn't affect you, but it's so important to empathize. That's what it means to empathize when we say that, is to put your heart and your mind in the place of another, and think, will my words hurt them, and to take that into consideration. And I think for those of us who want to criticize, we have to criticize in a way that the person that we're criticizing can constructively use it, can constructively handle it. And I think, especially when you're criticizing, targeting a specific person, me for example, I think it's so important to take my individual needs, if you want to have a positive impact, to take my individual needs into consideration. And when we talk about this topic, I often think about a little bit that Louis C.K. does, and I'm going to just paraphrase it here, but he talks about why he doesn't let his children have cell phones. It's because he doesn't want his children on social media. And he said that when he was growing up, and if he called somebody in his high school or elementary school schoolyard a name, then he would see that person hurt by that. Whoa. And then Louis would say, well, that makes me feel bad, so I don't want to do that anymore because I feel their pain. But when we're doing it through these devices, and we type that nasty little thing, and it goes off into the void, we never see that impact. And it feels good. It feels good to have that negative impact and never have to see the consequences. And so I think it's so important to empathize with the people that you're most critical of and try to, I mean, it depends on your goal. If you want to hurt that person, sure, then unleash. But if you want to help that person, or you want to help that person help the world, take their needs into consideration. Because those of you who do that for me, you've changed me into a better person and made my community better as well.
We only have about 5 minutes left. I just want to ask if we have any final thoughts before we close out.
I got a doozy, if I can. Oh, okay. Ooh, I practiced this one for weeks. Okay. I think sometimes because we do talk about certain subsets of people, specifically people without privilege, some people can get the misconception that only those groups are targeted. And I say this as the only male on this panel, and I say this as a white, cis male, a person who's in a place of privilege, that I understand that some communities have worse, but I have trouble really understanding that because the depths of what we've gone through. And I mentioned earlier, a few years back, we had somebody put out a hit on my life on the Tor network for $3,500, and then they sent me the link, and they delivered a pizza to my house to let them know that we were there. The absurd thing was they had the address wrong. They had my friend's address because my friend had left a box at my house, and that box had a label, and that label appeared in the video. So I had to call my friend and say, Jason, get out of your house, they're going to kill you. He's like, what are you talking about? I sent him a screen cap of the hit, and then the doorbell rings, and it's Domino's. And he's like, oh, we don't want any pizza, please. We've had boxes of feces delivered to our homes. We've had threats on my life, my family. We have been made to feel very, very uncomfortable. And I don't say this to dismiss anyone else's pain or to say that I have it worse because I genuinely don't believe that I do. I just want to say that if it can happen to me and I'm coming from a place of privilege, I think this can happen to anybody. It can happen to any of you who choose to create tomorrow. And I think when we get that misconception, I think that we have naysayers. Well, it's not worse for me, it's not worse for people of color. I think when we focus it on a human rights issue, not a woman's issue, not a man's issue, not a gay or straight issue, or a fat person or skinny person's issue, but it's a human rights issue that affects us all, at least in some way. I feel we can unite these subsets and these groups and these different people, and I think we can fight it together. And when we do that, I think that's how we actually could potentially end cyberbullying. But we have to end, I think, this struggle between each group before we can do that. And that's, I don't know.
I just want to add, I feel like, yes, it's completely, it is important to recognize that online harassment can happen to anybody, and having these conversations with everyone is really important. But within that group, within everybody, we have to recognize that different types of people will experience different types of harassment, and there might be different ways in which we have to tackle each one. And so I think it's important to recognize that within the large group, but yes, absolutely, it is an issue that can potentially affect everybody, but we do need to recognize and create specific ways to deal with each of the different kinds of harassment.
And we have to acknowledge that the harassment that people are getting online, for some people is just online, or is just after they started a YouTube channel, and for other people that harassment has been happening since before their birth. And I think that affects a lot of things outside of just the internet. So that's another part of the empathy too, right? Is understanding that there's harassment that's going on online, there's harassment that's happening by police, there's harassment that's happening by teachers, there's harassment that's happening by family members because of your gender, your sex, your orientation, your ethnicity, whatever it is. You're too much of something, you're not enough of another thing, and there's a desire in groups to have a position of power and to put other people down. And so I think when we're talking about online harassment, we're talking about empathy. So that's what I figured. So she agrees with what I'm saying. But yeah, I think it's important to understand that there are structures that have been in place for a long time, understand our history, and every generation wants to not repeat that history, but we don't have enough time to not do it feels like sometimes. So I think we just need to be aware of everyone else's struggle on top of our own and not feel like this weird, like we have to compete with each other, be combative with each other to prove who's more or whatever. We can help other people while we're still dealing with our pain.
I wish we could talk more about this. This is an extremely important subject, but we are at time. I just want to say thank you all everybody for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the video. If you guys enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. Boogie did great, very inspirational. Also, if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe down below. Until next time, bye.